We're heading out on a 4-day safari in Kenya, and honestly, we have no idea what to expect.
Our driver has left us here to go get help.
We'll be splitting our time between the Maasai Mara National Reserve and Lake Nakuru National Park, waking up early for game drives, and hopefully seeing animals that we've only ever seen in the zoo or on TV. We'll share what safari is really like,
Holy crap,
what surprises us, and everything we learn along the way. Let's get sipsy, y'all.
Hey guys, I can already tell this is probably gonna be a long video, so do yourself a favor, go grab a drink. Make sure you utilize the chapters below to know what's going on, and stick around to the end where we tell you everything we've learned and all of our tips. After months of planning, it is finally the morning of the safari.
We were picked up early in the morning from Nairobi and headed out toward the Maasai Mara, which is about a 6-hour drive depending on traffic and some perilous road conditions. And the journey itself is part of the experience, starting on paved highways, then slowly transitioning into rougher roads as you leave the city behind and head deeper into rural Kenya. Along the way, you pass viewpoints over the Great Rift Valley and small towns, and you really feel the shift from city life to wide open landscapes.
This is our first stop on the drive out to Maasai Mara. This is the Great Rift Valley. The Great Rift Valley is one of the largest rift systems in the world, stretching over 3,700 miles from the Middle East to East Africa. Formed by tectonic plates slowly pulling apart the earth, it shaped the land, the wildlife habitat, and is one of the places where some of the earliest human fossils were found. We came all the way to Kenya, but there is a cat that has stolen my attention.
It's a long drive, but it's definitely not a boring one, and it eases you into safari mode before you even arrive.
We made it. We just checked in and we're gonna go grab a bite to eat because that drive was very long. We got picked up this morning around 6:30. We arrived here at 1:30. So it was a long day. We also got a flat tire, so it slowed us down a little bit. Now, the company we went through picked out these accommodations for us. These are very nice. They actually remind us of a place we stayed at in Belize a few years ago. So we're absolutely pumped to be here. We were told on check-in to keep our balconies doors closed because there could be monkeys. Very excited. Okay, so we are now off on our first game drive. It is 3:30 in the afternoon. We have no idea how long it is. I brought an extra change of clothes. It can get cold from what we've been told. We have lots of snacks. I'm so excited. Here's what no one really tells you. You don't just see animals, you drop straight into their world. So let's start with the animals everyone dreams about. When people talk about a safari in the Maasai Mara, they're usually talking about seeing the big 5 animals. First up, lions. This is their kingdom. Then there's the leopard. Elephants are impossible to miss. Rhinos are rare here. And then there's the buffalo. Seeing all 5 isn't guaranteed, but that's what makes it exciting. All right, Christopher, how are you feeling about your first game drive?
I'm excited. I've already seen a few animals coming into the park, so I'm excited to actually get inside the park and see what else we can find.
The Maasai Mara is named after the Masai people, the semi-nomadic community that has lived on these lands for centuries, and the Mara River, which cuts through the reserve and sustains much of its wildlife. The word Mara means spotted in the Maasai language, a nod to the landscape dotted with trees, shrubs, animals, and shadows moving across the plains. In 1948, during British colonial rule, the area was designated as a wildlife sanctuary. By 1961, it officially became a national reserve under Kenyan management, with parts returned to local communities and others formally protected to preserve wildlife migration routes. Today, the Maasai Mara National Reserve sees hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. But what's wild is how small you feel once you're actually out there. The reserve covers about 1,500 square kilometers, and within that space, there are over 95 species of animals and more than 740 bird species spread across this massive stretch of open land. During migration season alone, it's estimated that over 1.5 million wildebeest, zebras, and antelope move through this ecosystem. This land protects migration routes, grazing grounds, and water sources that millions of animals rely on every year. Predators keep herbivores' numbers in check, herds shape the grasslands as they move, and the Mara River keeps everything alive during the dry season. It's all connected. If one piece disappears, the whole system feels it. That's why protecting a place like this matters way beyond tourism or safari photos. Being a cat lover, I was hoping that we'd be able to see some lions, and we were not disappointed. We came across a lion and lioness together, and let's just say it was very clear what season it was, and we could feel the love tonight. Lion pairs usually separate from the rest of the pride and keep to themselves during this time. And to our surprise, just a few bushes away was another male lion who reminded us just how similar the king of the savannah is to house cats. Hello, handsome. Do you want me to pet you if you come over here? Oh.
No stretching.
We watched these cuties for a while until a massive thunderstorm rolled in and they left to seek shelter. After that, we saw an elephant and buffalo quickly checking off 2 more of the big 5. Rain during the dry season isn't super common, so many of the animals were very happy. And just when we thought the drive couldn't get better, a tower of giraffes walked straight across our path. A group of giraffes is called a tower, which feels fitting considering they can stand up to 18 feet tall and literally rise above the savannah. Despite their height, they move with surprising grace and can run up to 35 miles per hour when needed. Unless you're staying in a hotel within the reserve, you must leave by sunset, so we made our way back through the savannah towards the lodge with the thunderstorm booming all around us. Did you see the baby? Look at this little nugget. Right. Oh, the baby. Day 1 safari in the books. Wow. We were only out there for a few hours and we saw 3 of the big 5, which is just like mind blowing. So we are hanging out in the common area here because that's where the Wi-Fi is. And we're just waiting for dinner. This was a big morning. We had to get up at like 5:30 this morning. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab a bite to eat. And then we will see you guys in the morning bright and early for a whole day of game drives. See you then. Bye. Good morning. It is day 2 here on safari. We are getting ready to head out. We're going to go grab a quick bite to eat and then we start our drive this morning at 7:30. Things you've learned from yesterday: dress in layers, prepare for anything, and make sure you have snacks on the game drive. Let's get out there. There's a bird here that sounds like the Hunger Games whistle. And Chris keeps out, does she want me to join the resistance? Is this Katniss? It's been very comical getting ready to leave on this safari this morning. All right, we got this. We can do this. Day 2 and something shifts out here in the Maasai Mara. You stop thinking about what you're supposed to see and start feeling the rhythm of the land. Sometimes on safari, you drive for a long time without seeing many animals at all. Just open plains, distant trees, and the steady hum of the Jeep moving forward. And when something finally appears, even if it's an animal you've already seen, it still feels electric. You never get used to seeing something that powerful, wild, and free. One thing that makes the Maasai Mara different is that you're allowed to leave the main roads as long as you stay on established tracks. Your guide can read the land, follow movement, and position you closer to wildlife when it's safe to do so. But those secondary tracks are not smooth. A path can quickly turn into deep ruts, loose gravel, or thick mud depending on the season. The ride gets bumpy, sometimes sideways, and you're holding on for dear life.
It's fine.
It's unpredictable, but that's what makes this feel real. We celebrated our next elephant sighting with a Tusker beer, a local favorite, with an elephant on the can, so it felt very fitting. Our guide received some intel on the radio, and suddenly we were dashing across the plains to encounter one of Masai's fastest hunters, the cheetah. Cheetahs are the fastest land animals on Earth, capable of reaching up to 70 miles per hour in short bursts. Unlike other big cats, they rely on speed over strength, using their lightweight bodies and long tails for balance to lock in on prey during high-speed chases. They also have one of the highest hunting success rates among big cats at around 50% in open savanna environments. Given the heat of the day, this one was resting, waiting for dusk before the real action would begin. As we continued, we came across Pumbas and a clan of hyenas sleeping in the grass. Often called the cleaners, hyenas play a vital role here, consuming carcasses down to the bone and helping prevent the spread of diseases. They're often misunderstood, but more on hyenas in a bit. Our guide spotted a lioness in the distance, and of course, we had to get closer. She stopped for a drink before slipping back into the bushes with other lionesses. Quick heads up, the next few clips show a very real moment from the wild and may be intense for some viewers. If you'd rather skip it, jump to this timestamp here. What we witnessed was a circle of life in its rawest form. Out here, every encounter reminds you that you are just a visitor in an ancient, ongoing story. We grew up watching The Lion King and definitely wanted to bust out into a circle of life song, but seeing it happen in real life hit very differently. Buffalo are part of the Big Five, and they might be the most unpredictable of them all. They've earned the nickname Black Death or Black Devil because of their reputation for being extremely dangerous and highly defensive. If threatened, buffaloes will charge, and they're known for circling back to confront danger rather than fleeing. They move in large herds for protection, and when one is injured, others often return to defend it. They don't get the same spotlight as lions or elephants, but guides will tell you buffaloes are not to be underestimated. We have stopped for lunch. There are a couple different washrooms within the park, which is where we have stopped. We're here with a bunch of other safaris, which is totally fine. We're gonna eat and then head back out. Got so much goodies. So I opened this in our lunchbox and I just saw a lion do this with a leg, so After lunch, we made our way to the Mara River, the heartbeat of this landscape. It's famous for the Great Migration crossings, but even on a normal day, it's full of life.
All those rocks that are in the middle of the river are actually hippos.
Hippos were piled into the water, grunting and shifting like they owned the place. They look calm and almost lazy, but they're actually one of the most dangerous animals out here.
Oh my God. How big is this hippo?
Along the muddy bank, we finally spotted a crocodile. Nearly impossible to see at first, just sitting completely still and waiting. The river looks peaceful on the surface, but underneath it is anything but. At one point, our driver took us all the way to the Tanzania border within the park, where the Maasai Mara seamlessly connects to the Serengeti. Wildlife doesn't recognize country lines, and they're able to move freely across this massive shared wilderness.
We've spotted a herd of elephants.
A group of elephants is called a herd, and it's usually made up of about 8 to 20 related females and their calves, all led by the oldest and most experienced female, known as the matriarch. Some of these matriarchs can live up to 70 years in the wild, which means they're guiding their families with decades of memories and lived experiences. Elephants are incredibly intelligent and emotional animals, capable of recognizing themselves in mirrors, mourning their dead, and remembering migration routes and water sources, even in a drought. Hyenas are often labeled as scavengers or villains, but spotted hyenas are actually highly skilled hunters and incredibly intelligent predators. They live in a large group called clans, which are also matriarchal. Females dominate the social hierarchy, and rank is passed down through family lines, with daughters inheriting their mother's status. Even the lowest ranking female outranks the highest ranking male in their individual clans. Our guide estimated that some of these hyena pups were only a week old, and it was very hard not to fall in love with them. The more you learn about them, the more you realize they're not the villain in this story at all. They're strategic, organized, and deeply social. They quickly became one of our favorites here in the Maasai Mara. Little did we know, our safari was about to take a turn. So current situation, we are stuck.
As you can see.
We are covered in mud. We try to push out the car. He's gone to get help, which means that we are literally just sitting in the car by ourselves in the middle of the National Reserve, which would be fine normally, but everyone's gone home for the evening. We're on our way home. So if the sun goes down, it's going to get very dicey. Plus, we have service if we really need to. We do have beer, so, there's that. Our driver is way over there. We are covered. Absolutely covered.
I'm opening a beer.
In mud. We're starting to drink. And we thought the most eventful thing was going to be the animals today. Guess not. Every time we've turned around, he keeps telling us this is like prime leopard territory. And he's also that leopards are like the meanest. We're going to offer leopard beer. It's going to be our bribe.
As we hear scary noises from afar.
Our driver is like way, way far away. And we keep hearing different noises. Like, we're laughing because it's comical and the end of this is going to be fine and I'm sure it's going to all work out. What are these noises? We're alone. Sun is about to set and our driver has left us here to go get help. This is, without a doubt, one of those situations that, like, you can't possibly expect to happen to you. And these sounds are getting closer. Cheers, y'all. Like, call me paranoid, but he's literally told us every time we've come near this, like, marsh area, just throughout the whole reserve, that this is leopard territory. They hunt at night, is what he was kind of saying. And this particular leopard, he just told us, hasn't been seen for 4 days, which is normal, I guess, for leopards, but she usually gets spotted more. I just keep scanning like a paranoid person. Chris is on leopard alert right now. Apparently filming is more important. So, if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to be prey, you should get stuck here without a guide. Who knows what the sounds mean? Okay, so fast forward. Chris saw a car. I started flashing lights and they saw us flashing the lights. They came over. Our guide was like way down the way. We started screaming for him to come back and they pulled us out. It was great. Since you can't be driving in the park after sunset, we raced as fast as we could back to our lodge. It was over 11 hours in the reserve today, so we quickly ate, showered, and went to bed, grateful we did not encounter a leopard. Good morning. It is roughly 4:30 this morning, and we are off on an amazing experience, which is going to be our first hot air balloon ride over the Maasai Mara National Reserve. So you get up really early. They come pick you up from your place, at least for us, around 5. And then we're going to go out. We're going to do a safety briefing. And then we're going to do 1 hour hot air balloon ride. We are very, very excited for this. After everything that went down yesterday, we decided to treat ourselves to this. And I cannot wait to see the Maasai Mara from a different viewpoint.
All right, so we have made it to the balloon launching spot. Not many people, I think, probably get to see sunset the night before and then sunrise the very morning after.
Ballooning in Africa actually dates back to the 1860s, which is kind of mind-blowing. Back then, a brave guy and his crew flew from Zanzibar to East Africa, crossing over the Serengeti and the Rift Valley. But modern balloon safaris in the Maasai Mara really started back in the 1970s. A photographer saw the potential for game viewing from above and launched one of the first commercial balloon operations here. He made a documentary called Safari by Balloon, which helped put this whole experience on the map. So while this feels like a dream dreamy, once-in-a-lifetime adventure, there's actually decades of history behind floating over these plains at sunrise. Watching the Mara wake up from the sky, you can see exactly why it caught on. For the past few days, we've been on the ground, bouncing over tracks, scanning the horizon, feeling immersed in it. But the moment we took off, the Mara revealed itself in a whole new way. It was quiet. No engine, no radio chatter, just the occasional burst of flame and the wind carrying us wherever it wanted. Up there, you realize how small you are. The land stretches in every direction, rolling plains fading into mountains in the distance, and the sun started to rise and the entire savanna turned gold. It's hard to explain, but this was the kind of sunrise that made me stop talking because there was just truly nothing to add. I'm sure Chris enjoyed the break. And then you start spotting animals from above. One of the coolest parts is how the pilot would gently lower us when animals were in the area. Giraffes dotted the tree lines. Elephants clustered together, casting long, dramatic silhouettes. And as we drifted over pockets of water, we spotted hippos gathered, just dark shapes clustered in the river below. On the plains, you feel completely inside the story, but from the air, you see the scale of it. It made everything we learned about this whole ecosystem make sense. The migration routes, the herds, the space they needed, the freedom they move with. Being up here felt humbling, like we were witnessing something ancient and vast, something that doesn't need us at all. Floating above this magical place will remain unforgettable. About 20 minutes before landing, we spotted a herd of elephants, and our pilot decided to drop lower for a closer look. Well, we got a little too close because one of the elephants actually yelled at us. Don't worry, we backed off. Before we knew it, our hour in the sky was coming to an end.
This was awesome. Highly recommend.
The pilot started guiding us lower, and just before landing, he grabbed a camera and snapped a few photos of us in the basket. Landing was not exactly graceful. The basket tipped sideways when we touched down, which is apparently normal, but in the moment, it definitely added a little adrenaline to the end of the flight.
That was incredible. We saw ostriches and giraffes and elephants and a hyena and hippos. That was incredible.
Nothing different than we've seen driving around the park, but just from a completely different perspective, obviously, and really, really cool.
10 out of 10 recommend. I failed to mention that after your hot air balloon ride, you get a champagne breakfast. This is perfect. Come over here, Ranger Rick. What'd you get?
Ranger Rick. With everything. Okay, so we just finished up breakfast after the hot air balloon ride, and this whole experience has been incredible. Obviously, the balloon ride itself was unbelievable. Like I said, you see things from just such a different perspective, and then they drive you about 10 minutes to this breakfast spot, and it's a full breakfast buffet. They call it a champagne breakfast, but it's Prosecco, so we were very happy to find that. We've had a couple glasses to kind of get the morning started. We are about to go off on another game drive for the rest of the day, and we will see what other animals we can find.
Leopard spotting where we got stuck last night.
So you're right to be a little worried. We have to cross this mud to get to this leopard.
So hold on is what?
We got this. Go. Let's do it. Do it. Come on, baby. Come on. Beautifully done, James. Beautifully done.
As fate would have it, we ended up right where we were stuck last night to see this beautiful leopard. Leopards are the introverts of the Big Five and masters of camouflage who can disappear into tall grass or tree branches in seconds. They're powerful, patient, and so well camouflaged that you can be staring right at one and not even know it, like we were last night.
Oh my God.
Unlike lions, leopards live and hunt alone, leading a solitary life, and they often cover vast territories, which makes a sighting even more rare. This leopard had had enough of the paparazzi for one day and decided to disappear from sight. Since this was our last day in the reserve, we were still searching for one animal that had eluded us, the rhino.
Day 3 on safari. We are stuck again in the mud. At our hot air balloon ride, we were with another American in our basket, and he was telling us that they pulled out 3 or 4 people yesterday from the mud. It's the first time he thought it was really uncommon, and they did it multiple times. This is fairly common while you're here, so don't panic if it happens.
Especially during rainy season.
I will say that if you do have hesitation around it, we did see Art for Elephant, ARTE for Elephant, as a different tour company that seemed to travel in a caravan. I know that that company, yesterday when we saw them, there was 3 or 4 different Jeeps that all were traveling together. But everyone here, as you can see, they are very nice, they're helpful, and they will get you out of the mud. And we're free. And in other news, there's a cheetah, like right over here, which is how we got stuck. In case you couldn't hear me earlier, the leopard that we saw was literally right where we got stuck last night. Like, it was right there. While we were having a lot of fun and joking and drinking beer and getting covered in mud, there was actually potentially some danger there.
Not long after leaving the leopard, we came across our first lion pride of the day. 3 lionesses tucked into the bushes, completely still in the shade. A little farther out in the open savanna, we found a second, larger pride stretched out beneath a lone tree. Lion prides can range anywhere from a few to more than a dozen, typically made up of related females, their cubs, and a small coalition of males. Lions spend up to 20 hours a day resting. They're most active at dawn, dusk, and overnight, which means during the heat of the day, you'll usually find them doing exactly this, sleeping. We saw more of the same animals we'd been seeing all week. Elephant herds moving slowly across the plains. We passed herds of zebras and other grazing animals moving together, a reminder that survival out here is rarely a solo effort. We even saw a hyena cross the road. Did he just check before crossing the road? To cool off in a small pond. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. As our last game drive in the Maasai Mara came to an end, we genuinely just felt grateful. Grateful for the early mornings, the dusty roads, the quiet stretches where we saw nothing, and the sudden moments where everything happened all at once. Grateful for every animal encounter, and over the past few days, the Mara gave us more than we ever expected. But we weren't done yet. We just got back from safari, and here at the beach are a bunch of monkeys, and there's all of the ugly birds. I keep calling them ugly birds. They're vultures. They're very intimidating, but these monkeys are so cute. I'm losing my mind. Just after sunset, we made our way to dinner where a hyena decided to stop by, which felt like the perfect end to this time in the Maasai Mara. Good morning. It is day 4 of safari, and we are actually leaving the Maasai Mara to head up to Lake Nakuru for a night. We are in search of rhinos, since that is the last big 5 that we are looking for while we are here. We were unable to find them in Maasai Mara. Our guide was telling us that in 7 years he's been a guide, he's only ever seen them 3 times. But Lake Nakuru has a large population there in comparison, so hopefully we'll get to see some.
All right, we have just made it up to the Lake Nakuru gate. Our guide is currently checking us in and getting us the tickets. It took us about 4.5 hours, I think, to get up here this morning. We left right at about 7. It is now 11:40-ish. We've stopped a couple times for bathroom breaks and coffee breaks. Otherwise, we are now, again, just waiting for our guide, and then we are into the park. Lake Nakuru National Park has a very different story compared to the wide open savannas of the Maasai Mara. The park sits around a lake that's been here for thousands of years, naturally attracting birds and wildlife thanks to its unique ecosystem. But it wasn't always protected. In the early 1960s, the area around Lake Nakuru was facing serious environmental pressure, including deforestation and overgrazing. But what really caught the world's attention, though, were the flamingos. At one point, Lake Nakuru became famous for hosting millions of flamingos, turning the shoreline bright pink and putting the lake on the global map. In 1961, the area was first designated as a bird sanctuary, and in 1968, it officially became a national park. Over time, its role expanded beyond just birds. Lake Nakuru became one of Kenya's Kenya's most important rhino sanctuaries, created to protect both black and white rhinos from poaching. And today, it's one of the best places in the country to see rhinos in the wild, which is something we didn't fully appreciate until we were here.
Just got checked in, went to the room, dropped the stuff. We're gonna head to lunch. This park, totally different vibe. Because of the water, it's very luscious. There's trees. We were told there's 2 different types of leopards here and lions. No cheetahs though, but there's also some endangered giraffes here, which we didn't know about. So let's go grab some food and then we're gonna head back out for another game drive. Lake Nakuru brought a completely different kind of wildlife. Baboons seem to be everywhere. They live in large social groups called troops, which can range anywhere from a dozen to over 100 members. They're incredibly intelligent and adaptable, and their troops are highly structured with dominant males at the top, but strong female family lines that stay together for life. Baboons are actually close relatives of humans, sharing a common primate ancestor, which is part of why their facial expressions and social behaviors can feel surprisingly familiar. Lake Nakuru is famous for its flamingos, but their numbers here have fluctuated over the years as water levels and algae concentrations shift. They feed on algae in the lake's alkaline water, which gives them their soft pink color. But when conditions change, the flocks move on in search of better feeding ground. Flamingos feed upside down with their heads in the water, filtering algae and tiny organisms from the water, and turning helps stir up more food beneath the surface. Here, we just thought it was practicing for a game of Dizzy Bat. White pelicans also share the lake with the flamingos, but the water attracts many herd animals who gather along its shoreline to drink.
The baby buffaloes are pretty cute.
And one of the most special sightings here is the endangered Rothschild's giraffe. Lake Nakuru is actually one of the key protected areas for this subspecies, which has lighter coats and fewer patches below the knee, making them easy to distinguish if you know what you're looking for. Male giraffes swing their long necks and slam their heads into each other in a behavior called necking, a powerful sparring match used to establish dominance and win mating rights. We'd been scanning the park all afternoon, stopping at every dark shape in the distance and hoping it would be the moment. You start to wonder if it's ever going to happen. Do rhinos actually exist here? And then suddenly, there it was. Not a rock, a black rhino out in the open. After days of searching, it finally happened. Black rhinos are critically endangered and far more solitary and temperamental than their white rhino counterparts. Despite their name, they aren't actually black. The difference comes down to their pointed, hook-shaped lips, which are adapted for browsing shrubs and trees instead of grazing grass. They have poor eyesight, but an incredible sense of smell and hearing, which makes encounters feel intense and unpredictable.
Completed the big 5. Rhinos.
We doubled back towards the lake in hope of spotting a white rhino, and way off in the distance, barely visible through the trees, we found a herd. White rhinos are the larger of the 2 African species and are actually more social, often moving in small groups rather than alone. Despite their size, they're primarily grazers, using their wide, flat mouths to feed on grass, and they tend to be calmer and less temperamental than the black rhinos. Not too far from the lake, we got word over the radio about a male lion sighting, and we were not disappointed. He was standing on top of a massive fallen tree in the forest, completely owning the scene. Our guide told us that this was a common route animals take when leaving the lake, and he was likely just waiting it out until dark, conserving his energy for a potential hunt. As this whole safari came to a close, we realized it gave us more than just wildlife sightings. It reminded us that places like this don't exist for our entertainment. We're guests here, visitors in stories that were unfolding long before we arrived and will continue long after we leave. We're just lucky enough to witness a small part of it. Maybe that's the bigger lesson, not just for safari, but for travel in general. Exploring new places isn't about conquering them or checking off a list. It's about showing up with respect, letting the experience unfold the way it's meant to, being present in a place that doesn't owe you anything. These past few days were like nothing we've expected. Some moments quiet, some were intense, but all of it felt real. And I think that's what makes a safari just so unforgettable.
Morning. It is 6 a.m. yet again. I will say this, you get up early for these things. We are heading back to Nairobi today. We're gonna go grab a quick bite to eat at breakfast. And once we get to Nairobi, we will tell you all about what we've learned and everything that you'll need to know before you plan your own safari.
After going on safari, there are a few things we learned that we wish someone had told us ahead of time or that we had just been more prepared for.
First up, patience is kind of the whole point. Safari is not a zoo. It is definitely not a quick drive-through wildlife park. These animals, they're in their natural habitat, and you are entering their world. And that means there can be very long stretches of driving, scanning the horizon, following their tracks, and honestly wondering if you're going to see anything at all. And then suddenly, bam, your heart is pounding because there's a pride of lions that is sitting right in front of you.
Asleep.
Yes. Honestly, it's really those boring moments that I think makes the exciting ones even better. So just go in expecting, kind of ebbs and flows, not constant action. Take snacks and beer, sunblock, and just enjoy being in this wild place.
Second, you do not need a full safari wardrobe. Neutral colors are great, mostly because of heat and dust, but not necessarily because the animals are going to run away if you wear black or bright colors. Comfort truly matters way more than looking the part of being on safari. You're gonna be sitting for hours, standing and bracing yourself on bumpy roads, and dealing with early morning cold that turns into midday heat. So pack layers, wear clothes you don't mind getting dusty or muddy, because more than likely they will.
Third, and we heard this said in a lot of our research, which is say yes to the game drive. Even if you're tired, even if it's early, even if you already saw a bunch of elephants or whatever. These are once-in-a-lifetime chances to see wild animals in the wild. And you don't know which game drive will be the one where you're gonna see a leopard sitting in a tree or a cheetah crossing the road. This is not the time to conserve your energy.
Fourth, stretch at night. And this sounds very dramatic, and maybe it's our age, but the game drives are fairly rough on your body, more than we expected them to be.
Sure.
The constant bumps, the twisting to look at animals, the holding onto the rail while you're standing adds up over the course of a day. We woke up sore on more than one occasion. And I just think like a quick 5 to 10 minutes of stretching before bed could probably make a huge difference.
And next, on that same wavelength, the roads are definitely an experience. Inside the parks, and honestly, even on the way into the parks, you might go from pavement to gravel to dirt to mud within just a few minutes time. And honestly, it reminded us of parts of our RV drive towards Alaska. It's all just part of the adventure, but just be mentally and, like we said, physically prepared for it. And last but not least, bathroom breaks. You're probably wondering this, but on a game drive, there aren't really rest stops, especially if you're spending an entire day out in the park. Sometimes the bathroom is a bush or behind a tree, or honestly, wherever your guide just decides is safe. You just have to trust that the bush they pick doesn't have a buffalo hiding behind it like we had, almost. That being said, and depending on the park, there may be certain picnic areas or more formal rest areas that do have bathrooms. Just don't always count on it because you don't know where you're gonna be in the park.
Overall, honestly, this safari humbled us. It reminded us how incredible this planet is. If you're looking to experience a place where you are a guest in one of the last truly wild places on Earth, then you'll want to add a safari to your bucket list.
But next up, we are trading the dirt roads for vineyard roads. We are heading just outside of Cape Town into one of South Africa's most famous wine regions for a complete change of pace.
If you thought Africa was just about safari, wait until you see what's next. World-class wine, insane mountain backdrops, and an entirely new chapter of this trip. Thanks so much for watching, y'all.
Cheers.